Okay, we're here with Brian Townsend. Brian plays in the higher stakes cash games online. Talk about this hand, Brian. It's a head-to-head hand-to-hand combat, the 200, 400 blinds at Full Tilt Poker.
Well, I was playing Magic Pitch, who is a regular in the high-stakes games. He plays pretty much all the high-stakes games there. And in this hand, we both were pretty deep. We had over 1.5 buy-ins in front of us. And we had just been playing 4 or 5-handed, and the game had broke, and it was just us two. Now playing heads up.
You've got about 68,000. He's got about 65,000.
Yeah, which works out to a little over 1.5 buy-ins. So, in this hand, I know him as a very tricky, aggressive player and a very tough opponent, capable of a lot of moves and a lot of bluffs and doing a lot of wild things, it can appear, but there's a lot of method to his craziness. So,
okay. Well, he raises 1,200 from the button.
And I defend with king-queen offsuit.
Okay. And
sometimes pre-flop, I would re-raise here. Probably about, if we had smaller stacks, I would re-raise about 95% of the time. But with these stacks, I decided to raise, not to raise, because when you re-raise and you flop a king or a queen, you're not really going to be able to get away from your hands, but he's not going to want to put a lot of money in with a worse hand. So I opted just to call here.
Okay.
But re-raising is definitely an option.
Okay, so the flop came down 2 of hearts, 3 of diamonds, queen of hearts.
So
what are you
very
thinking?
Good flop for me.
Right.
I decided to check it to him and put in a little raise. Not something I always do, but I elected this time just to go for a small raise because I thought there were a lot of hands that he would call me with, and it might look like I had a draw of some type.
Okay. So you check raised, and then he just smooth called you. What kind of read do you have now?
Well, when he just smooth called me there, I figured that his range is still pretty wide, but not as wide as before. I would guess that he's got some type of draw, either a flush or straight draw, or some type of monster hand, ace, king, kings, ace, queen, or a set, something better than me, or else he's got some type of mid-pair or something like that. But I have narrowed his range down a bit because I don't see him staying in with like Jack-10 offsuit or Ace-Jack or anything like that.
Right. Well, the turn comes the 9 of diamonds, and you check and he checks, so you're sort of backing off a bit here.
Yeah, on the turn, I didn't want to be semi-bluffed. I didn't want to have to bet, and if I got raised all in, I'd be in a really, really tough spot. Because if he shoved on the turn, I probably couldn't profitably call, but I would be getting bluffed a lot of the time by either a straight draw, a flush draw, or some type of hand like that.
Right.
So I opted to keep the pot small and just check it. And sometimes on the flop, I would keep the pot small also and not check raise and just check call. So I went for a check. If he had bet the turn, I probably would have check called him there.
Right. And you've narrowed his range now, too, because of this?
And, yeah, well, after he checks the turn, I know that he can't have a hand better than mine because he has to protect his hand because there's a lot of draws out there. And I could be drawing. I could have a drawing hand here and have check raised the flop and check the turn. So when he checks behind, I figure that he's got a hand blessed and he's either got to draw himself or he's got some type of mid-pair that he's not sure about. So like an ace-3 type of hand or, maybe a pair like 4s through 8s or something like that. Something he's not totally sure about.
Right. So the river comes down to 5 of spades and you bet out 14,400.
Yeah, so pretty standard here. I want to get paid off by a worse hand. I'm pretty sure I'm ahead. And, I figure might as well get some value out of the hand.
And he comes over the top and pushes all in with 457.
And then he shoves on me, yeah. So very, very tough situation with just one pair. And, when I look at what he's capable of having, I have to think, does he have a set of fives? Did he make a straight with like a flush draw, like ace-4 of hearts or 4-6 of hearts or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
And when deciding to call, I have to also think, how do I look to him? Well, I look pretty weak to him since I check the turn with a lot of draws out there. So if I had a set, I would probably bet the turn because I want to protect my hand.
Right.
With a weaker hand, I checked, trying to control the size of the pot. So on the river, it looks like I'm very weak and just trying to get value from a one-pair hand that I have. So it is very likely that he would try to bluff me there and shove all in.
Right. Well, talk a little bit about heads-up dynamics and getting that kind of read, because a lot of players I know tend to play on just the first level or just the level of thinking, what does he think? You know, what does he have? What do I have? And going a little bit deeper about that.
Well, heads-up is like the ultimate, you know, one-on-one. Comes down to, it's very player-dependent, more so than anything else. The more short-handed you get, the more player-dependent it gets. So when you're playing 10-handed, it's you're much more of a robot, and the decisions you make really aren't based off the players as much as the actual cards you're holding. Whereas when it gets heads up, it's almost entirely based off the player. And I would say that's the big difference when you go heads up versus full ring or even six max.
Right. Well, you called this bet of 43,000, and you won the hand with king queen, and the villain had a pair of sixes.
Sixes, yeah. So, you know, the river could have been a six, and he probably would have played it the same, and I probably would have called, and I would have lost. So, you know, there is some, I guess, luck involved or dodging bullets too. So I got lucky in that regard that he didn't outriver me.
Right.
I would have called if he had hit a six there.
Of course.
But I might have been more likely to lay it down since 4 or 5 would have gotten there, and that would have been a pretty major part of his range.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know recently you played on high stakes poker. Thanks for doing the hand with us. And also, talk about one thing. I know you recently became an owner at Card Runners. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, basically in the past year and a half now, I've, been developing my game and moved up very quickly from 25 cent, 50 cent no limit to playing 300, 600 heads up. And Card Runners was a huge influence on that, watching the videos and improving my game and being a part of the community over there. So when I had the opportunity to join Card Runners, I really jumped at it because it helped me with my game so much and helped me grow the players so much that I felt like it was partially my obligation to give back to something that had helped me so much.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to helping the community over there.
Well, we appreciate it, Brian. Thanks for doing a hand-to-hand combat with Card Player, and we'll talk to you soon.